welcome to the Apocalypse.gym.podcast. I'm Justin Klein, and this podcast is designed to bring you people who have fought back at life and are better people because of it. It could be mental, could be physical, could be spiritual battles, but they suffer through them. They have a story, and they want to share that story so that everyone out there, you, the listener, the survivors, can hopefully listen and learn and apply what they have gained through their experience to your life and hopefully make you a better person on the backside. Now, this podcast is brought to you by Drink Armor. Let me move my coffee cup here. Right? They make a bunch of cool weightlifting items that you can get. And if you check out their website, check out our link and use our code down in the show notes below. We get a little bit of that profit, which will go directly to benefiting the podcast and helping us spread the message of all of our survivors out there, and hopefully can make everyone a little bit better. So let's get to the show and our next guest. So it's 8:00, and I want to get this podcast up because obviously I said this is the time I was going to do the podcast, so I want to be true to my word. For all these, if you ever tune in, if I say something, that's the time it's going to be. And I thought, there were a couple different reasons why I wanted to talk about the why. As we talked about last week, we talked about the relentless pursuit of not only your best self, but also the relentless pursuit of someone you may think that needs your help. And the first thing I wanted to hit on, one of the reasons is earlier this week, I had a competition that I was trying out for, and it was a relatively grueling experience. It was about eight hours long, carrying weight, rucking, running, obstacle courses, technical skills, and it was, it's extremely difficult. And, during the middle of it, you see that you're suffering. I mean, I can specifically talk, it was the 8-mile ruck, which isn't far, if it's a standalone event, right? And by me, an 8-mile ruck is like we're carrying a 45-pound backpack, and you're trying to go as fast as you possibly can because it's based on points. And to get 100 points, you had to do it in an hour and 20 minutes, which is a 10-minute mile. So for any of you people who run out there, so basically you had to run in a pair of boots, not tennis shoes, 8 miles in an hour and 20 minutes, 10-minute mile. But you also have a 45-pound backpack on you, trying to accomplish it. So obviously your heart rate's going to be, through the roof, and it was on a gravel road, so your feet are taking a beating. And about halfway through, you're getting to the halfway point, or at least for me it was. It's like, why do you continually put yourself into these awful situations, right? And you fight this battle in your mind, right? And so it goes back to the why, which we'll get into later. And then also, because it's Veterans Day weekend, a lot of people ask, why do people join the military or whatever branch it is? Why do they do it? And I think there's a lot of different reasons, and no reason is better than others. I think you all have to realize what your reason is to get, to maximize whatever opportunity it is you're presenting yourself. So I want to talk about my story, kind of like my why. And the why is, it's always changing. I think your why is very relevant to where you're at in life. And I think as, you go on with life, your why changes, right? So kind of my why, it's changed multiple times. But it originally started as, when I graduated high school, I was going to college, and believe it or not, I was going to be a doctor. I was pre-med when I was in my junior college, taking all the courses I could, doing everything I could, right? trying to be a good student. I did some stupid things that got me in trouble. Well, let me rewind. Right, sorry. Let me go back. I was trying to pay for college, right, and incur as minimal cost on my parents as possible, right? So I had a scholarship to the junior college I was going to. I had a good job. I was, an RA for the building where I lived. So I was relatively getting my education for pretty much free, right? I didn't have to pay hardly any tuition. My parents didn't have to pay anything, all right? And I thought, man, so being a doctor is a lot of college. It's a lot of time. It's going to be a lot of money. So I was like, how could I pay for all this, without coming out of, med school with $14 bazillion in debt? So I thought, okay, the Army pays for college. Well, I can join the National Guard because, let's be real, it's the National Guard. They don't employ that much. So I can go to the National Guard and I can pay for a lot of my college and not have to really do anything besides my 2 weeks during the summer. So that's my original intent. So I joined the National Guard. Recently I was actually down at basic training in charge of a company. And there's a lot of people who go to the Army for college money. And that's okay, right? As long as you know why you're there and you understand why you're there and what you're willing to take on because of your why, that's fine, right? I did it. I joined for college, right, originally. All right, so back to where I was at. I was in college and, I made some stupid mistakes. And I ended up going active duty. And the reason I went active duty, my why, was because I thought I could get away from the trouble that I was in and kind of the lifestyle that I was leading, because it wasn't a good lifestyle. I was making a lot of bad choices. And so I joined active duty, right? And that was my why. I didn't have the intention of staying in any considerable amount of time originally. I thought, hey, I'll go active duty, get away from the troubles that I've caused. I'll, avoid jail or whatever it was that I may have been facing, right? But I no more than got to my first duty station that I deployed, right? And I can tell you on that deployment, my why changed very quickly, again. So my why went from basically running away from my troubles to I wanted to ensure that others, right, could succeed at what they were doing in the Army. It became about everybody else. It was weird. It was a weird transition from, looking out after yourself to looking out about other people. And it was good while I was, on the line doing things, when I was in Hawaii, when I was at Fort Bragg. It was about everybody else. It was about taking care of everybody. And I thought I was, doing the best that I could with, what I was doing. And then I went somewhere else, and, I've told the story before, I became very unfit, and I kind of got fat. So I found some reprieve into fitness. And so my drive, my why becoming more fitter. And then, as I said, more people had started to see what I was doing, and I saw how I was impacting them. And my why kind of came back to helping others, right, through what I was doing for fitness. And then I started to be like, okay, well, if I can help others this way, it's like, what if I was smarter? So I got myself an education in fitness. And now that I got my education in fitness, I became to help others more. So it's been a long journey for me of finding my why. And it's exactly why I'm here on this podcast, is I'm trying to help others in whatever dynamic that I can, whether it's directly me helping you achieve a fitness goal, whether it's the online people that I coach and giving them, a training plan they can stick to so they can become better, or if it's through a podcast that you can listen to that maybe, 99% of it goes beyond what you even care about, but at least 1%, right? 1% plants a seed, and you can take that 1% and run with it. So it's, for me, the why is everyone that I'm virtually staring at right here, it's because of you guys that I do what I do, and that's what brings me happiness, right? I mean, I'll walk away from the podcast thinking, I hope one person listens to it and it affects them. And if it does, that's awesome. And that's all it takes, right? So it's important that we talk about the why of why we are going to choose the hard road over what it could be the easy road. And part of when I was getting my education in personal training was, they call them SMART goals, right? So SMART stands for an acronym: specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely. And when it comes to the specific, a lot of times when you ask somebody, they come to you, hey man, I want to get in shape. Okay, great. Why? Oh, well, I just want to lose, 5 or 10 pounds, whatever it is. Okay, well, that's great. It's not the why, right? So you keep asking why, and it starts, if you think of a big funnel, right? So, they start here, right? And every time you ask why, it gets a little smaller. It gets a little smaller. It gets a little smaller. And it could be the fact that it's like, at the very end of it, you dig and you peel enough layers of the onion away that it might be, okay, so you want to lose 5 to 10 pounds. Well, why? Oh, well, I was trying to look better. Oh, okay, why? And then you get to the end of it, and it's like, okay, well, in 6 months I have my class reunion, and I want to look good for my class reunion. Okay, great. You know what? You were getting there, right? And we're whittling it down, and it might be they want to look good because they want to impress their old high school girlfriend. They want to impress their old high school boyfriend. Like, it's the why that we have to get down to for you to really be able to leverage that to achieve your success, right? Because if you're just like, oh, I want to get fit. Okay, great. When those hard days happen, right? If you're just sucking at life because the workout's terrible, I just want to get fit is not going to get you over the hump. And it's the very specific why that you can leverage to yourself. And a lot of older people, I think, I don't want to say older, but I guess they're older. A lot of older people are starting to look into fitness because they want to be able to play with their grandchildren or their great-grandchildren or whatever. And it sounds really weird, but if you're just, sitting in your chair and you're watching your grandchildren, or even, whatever, if you're watching the kids play, and like, man, that's really great, and you're just watching them enjoy it, that's great. But if you want to get down, right, and rough around on the floor with them, you obviously, are capable now. You're going to have to obviously do something to get there, right? So your why, like, hey, I want to be with my children, my grandchildren, and I want to be rolling around with them, playing football or whatever on the holidays or whatever. So when you go to the gym, right, you're that kind of person, and, that workout is just awful, right? You're just like, oh, man, I can't get to it today. You know your why because, like, I want to be better so that I can play football on Thanksgiving with my children, my grandchildren, and my great-grandchildren, right? You got your why, and you have that thing that helps you choose the hard road over the easy road. And I think that's, I see a lot of people that choose the easy road. And I think we've all seen that picture, right? It's always got, like, this super awesome highway that goes, like, off this direction, and there's a bunch of people on it. And it's like, oh, it's all bright and sunny. It's like, oh, man, I want to go that way. And then at the fork of the road, there's this dirt road that goes off this direction. There's nobody on it. It's dark. It's like, man, I would never drive down that road, right? But I can tell you, and from my experience, and obviously this is my experience, and you take it for what it's worth, that other road over there, it's crowded, right? Who likes driving in traffic? It's crowded. It might be smooth and there's no bumps, and just kind of cruise on, just kind of drift through life, no big deal. I'll eventually get to the end of it, right? And then that's it. But this other road, right? This other road, there's nobody there. It's going to be lonely. You might run into somebody once in a while. You might see an animal here or there, right? But it's going to be lonely. It's going to be rough, right? There's going to be potholes. There's going to be bumps in the road. But it's not crowded, right? I think that when you're not in a crowded environment, the opportunities present themselves more, right? Because we're not focused, right? I think the saying is, don't miss the trees for the forest. So I think when we lose the noise, right, we see more opportunities than if it's crowded, right? We're getting on this crowded road. There's all this traffic. There's cars everywhere. It's hard to see through them. It's hard to see all the good stuff, right? It's hard to see the beauty that's around you, right? But if you're on this other road, that it's wide open, right? You're probably going a little bit slower because it's rough. You're not cruising down the interstate. This is, a 2-lane road out in the country. It's kind of rough. It's gravelly, right? You're going slower, but there's nobody there, nothing there to skew your view, right? So you see all the great opportunities, right? You enjoy the journey because you're going a little bit slower, right? And it's the why that we got to dig into for us to be able to choose that hard road, right? So you're going to get to that intersection, like you're going to have two choices. It's really, really always boils down to two choices. It's, hey, I can go this way, it'll work out. Well, let's go down this way. It's easy. That's the easy choice, right? But then you got this hard answer, this hard choice. Hey, I'm going to go this way. It might take longer. It might be rougher, right? But in the end, I think that you're going to enjoy that journey more. And I think the overall win at the end of it is more satisfying than if we just went with the flow with everybody else. I hope that was coherent thoughts. I took some notes. They're in front of me. I mean, you can't see them. It looks like I'm just staring at the camera, but I'm not. I'm staring at my notes. But I hope that was a coherent thought, because some of that was kind of off the cuff. But you gotta, let me rewind it back, right? So I was on this ruck march, and we had already been going for 3 or 4 hours, right? Probably more than that. And I was cruising, right? Like I'm looking at my watch, right? I'm trying to make the hour and 20 minutes. I'm trying to get 100 points. And there was other people competing, right? But there was one other guy, and me and him were kind of going back and forth for kind of the lead for the first 4 miles, right? And I wasn't going to quit. He had a little bit different approach, right? Like he would run real fast, and then he would start walking, right? And then I'd catch back up, and I kind of pass him, and then he'd run faster again, and then he'd walk, and I just kept running, right? Like I'm more like a diesel engine, right? Once I get going, I just don't stop. I'm not super fast. I'm not gonna be the fastest person out there, but I'm gonna go, and I'm just gonna keep going, right? So I can distinctly remember at mile 5, I passed him again, and that was it, right? Once I passed him at mile 5, he never passed me again. And while I was, after about a half mile and I never saw him again, I was like, okay, well, I'm in first place, which means I'm going to get more points than he is anyway. Do I really have to keep running? Because I was right at my limit, right? I was right at a 10-minute mile. I was real close to coming into 120. I mean, I was giving it everything I got. I mean, I couldn't go any faster. I mean, granted, if it went downhill, I might go, but I was pushing pretty hard. And I thought to myself, okay, well, I can slow down. I look back, like I had a little bit of distance. I was like, I can stop, I can slow down, I can walk. I'm going to stay ahead of him. Or do I keep pushing hard? Why do I need to keep pushing hard? Right? Did I have anything to prove? I was going to beat him. I did. My why was like I was trying to prove to myself that I was still capable of doing what I intended to do. Right? Again, this was a competition, right? You basically needed to get the most amount of points to win. You didn't have to win everything, right? It was all kind of cumulative. But it was a why to myself of I'm getting older. I'm not a young kid anymore. It was a test for me to determine kind of mentally, like, are you ready for what you're about to do, right? Can you push yourself past what you think your limit is to be able to accomplish what it is you're about to take on? And so there was a why to me. It was my why for that specific instance was to test myself of whether or not I was going to be capable of doing what I'm going to ask my body to do here coming up in the next few months. And that's what drove me, right? I ended up, ironically, I didn't make my hour and 20 minutes. It was an hour and 20 minutes and 6 seconds. So I missed it, right? So I missed it by 6 seconds. But it was still the why, the drive, right? It got me. I could have easily, like I said, stopped and slowed down, but I didn't stop and slow down because I knew my why, right? And that's what you got to ask yourself, right? So as soon as if you're still listening, right, if you haven't turned me off yet, you've got to ask your why. Why is it that why are you listening to this podcast? Is it just because you know me? And you're like, oh, I want to support him? Well, I appreciate that, right? And I hope you keep listening. But I hope it's because you are trying to get some kind of mental edge to carry you, further down the road, right? I hope that when you turn this podcast off, that you sit down and you kind of go down the rabbit hole of why. It's like, okay, why did I listen to this podcast? Well, I wanted to support Justin. Okay, well, again, thank you, right? Well, it's okay. Well, why do I want to support Justin? Well, I see what he does, fitness-wise. Maybe, I want to be fit too. Okay, great. Why do you want to be fit, right? Just go down the rabbit hole, whatever it is, and it doesn't have to be related to the podcast or me or whatever. It could be anything. Like I said, there are some people who just want to roll around in the grass with their grandkids, right? Maybe you see your dog and you're like, man, I feel bad because my dog just sits in his bed all day. I want to go take my dog on walks more. So that's your why. I want my dog to have a better life. And it can be anything, right? It doesn't have to be I want to run a marathon or I want to climb Mount Everest. It doesn't have to be a gigantic goal, right? But you got to find a why for whatever it is you're doing. But you got to just remember, sometimes the realization is, right? And again, your why will change per situation. Again, like I earlier talked, is the reason I'm in front of these cameras right now is because of you guys. And I'm here I want to benefit other people. I want to bring, something that you guys can take away and hopefully make your lives better. And that's like a big overarching, specific instance of the competition that was this week. My why was proving to myself. So your why can change from situation to situation. This is kind of specific, but I think while you're going down the road, right, when you hit the fork, there's always the fork, right? I think you have to be able to realize when you're at a fork. Or sometimes it may not look like a fork. Maybe you're just cruising down the road and there's an exit, right? And I think you got to be able to recognize the exit or the fork. And you got to figure it out. Okay, well, this is my easy answer. It's not a big deal. I'll just keep going on that road, right? And I'll just kind of keep living life. Good to go. No big deal, right? But if you can see, right, the fork is easy because you got to make a decision left or right. But I think sometimes you've got to be on the lookout for the exit. And we got to be, okay, I'm cruising. Hey, I think here's where I need to change. Here's where I need to make an exit. Because I'm just cruising right now. Things are great. Things are good. I like it. But maybe it's time for a change. And it's going to be rough, right? I mean, you're going 70 miles an hour down the interstate, and you take an exit. You just don't keep cruising 70 miles an hour. You got to pump the brakes, right? And I think it's symbolic, right? That too, you got to flip a turn signal. You got to let somebody know, hey, I'm not going that direction anymore. I'm making a change. And I think that's important let somebody know that you're going to make a change. Let them be an accountability partner. And we've talked about this on the podcast earlier, right? Get yourself an accountability partner, right? Flip that turn signal on. Signal a change. Get an accountability partner. Pump the brakes a little bit. Merge off the interstate and make a change, right? You're going to go in another direction. So, your why, right? It kind of goes back, you could say too, is like, why am I getting off the exit? Because I'm making a change. Well, what direction are you going? Why are you going that way? Because I'm making a change. Your why can drive you to whatever direction it is, right? Your why is going to get you off the interstate. Your why is going to determine what direction you're going to go. So, I'm about at my 30-minute time limit that I try to keep it because I know you guys have a lot better things to do during your day than to listen to me. But, once I roll up here and I get off, it might take 5 minutes for some people. It might take 20 minutes for some people. It might take a couple days to really kind of deep dive, but sit down, right? Just grab a piece of paper and write why, right there real big, and go down the rabbit hole and find your why. Why are you doing this? Okay, great. Is there more behind that? Well, I want to lose, I'll keep going back to this reference, but I want to lose weight. Why? Well, I want to look better. Okay, well, why do you want to look better? And it goes down, and there's, at a certain point, it doesn't go anymore, and that's the why, right? And it could be a shallow reason. Great. I want to look good naked. That's great, right? Everybody wants to walk around on the beach with a six-pack and look good. If that's your why, then great. That's what's going to drive you, right? But again, everybody, thank you for tuning in to the podcast week after week. Again, I hope you guys are taking something from this, whatever it is. Listening to the podcast is great. It helps support us. If you guys click that, the red subscribe button, right, that helps. That helps get this visibility across all the platforms, whether it's on YouTube, like you're watching live, or if it's on all the streaming platforms, whether it's Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, or on our homepage of Liberation Syndicate. When you subscribe and download, it helps grow our community, and it helps us get seen more. Recently, you guys have seen that we've got a merch store. We're trying to keep the prices as best we can to give you guys the best thing you can, and we can make a little bit of money to help benefit the podcast. A lot of that money goes directly back into upgrading equipment or getting more stuff or supporting other causes. I've got some decals here, right? So you can see it there, right? See it there. All right, they're up on, you can check our Linktree address. It's got the merch store on there. You can get some decals. We've got some t-shirts on pre-order. You guys can order those. And we're working on some more. Maybe some hats are coming. I've had a lot of requests for hats. We'll work on that one right now. And then with it being cold, as it just snowed in Indiana yesterday, we may or may not have some sweatshirts in the works. But again, by buying the decals, that helps give us more capital so that we can spend more money on more things. And so again, support us however you can. If it's just listening, that's great. If you guys want to buy some of our merchandise, slap it on the back of your truck and support the podcast that way. We appreciate it. Our friend of the podcast, Jennifer Willems, who runs Chunk Company, as she likes to call it, the Fat Duck. She is the supplier of all tactile goods, t-shirts, sweatshirts, and all that stuff. So not only are you supporting the podcast, you're supporting a friend of the podcast through Jennifer Willems. So again, hit us up wherever it is. And don't forget Drink Armor. My camera's not showing it very well, but don't forget these guys. These guys are a huge supporter of the podcast too. These guys are awesome. If you guys are into the fitness realm, they got some great stuff out there to kind of show your life as a fitness enthusiast. So again, thank you all. I appreciate everything you guys have done. I appreciate you guys listening. Send us questions or comments or suggestions. If you guys think of somebody who you want to be on the podcast, who you think has a great story, and you think they should be able to share it with the world, we are very open to anybody coming on the podcast. So please send us an email or direct messages on whatever our social platform is. Our email is literally our name, apocalypse.gym.podcast@gmail.com. Probably getting 1,000 spam mails from that, but it doesn't really matter. Again, thank you guys. I hope you guys all have a great day. I hope you took a chance to thank a veteran this weekend, because they're pretty special people. Anyway, as I close out every show, right, I usually say go to the gym. But after last week's podcast, I think that our new slogan and kind of the way that we're going now is going to be stay relentless. Whatever it is you're doing, whether it's a gym, whether it's, your clothing company, your friendship with somebody, your pursuit of somebody, stay relentless. So you guys get it. Close out this podcast. You can mark it now in episode number 7. Changing the slogan to stay relentless. All right, you guys have a great day.